Are you tired of paying high prices for food, cars, homes, clothing, and everything in between? Well, you're not alone. But here's the worry. Experts, CEOs, business owners, bankers, billionaires, millionaires, right? And economists are all predicting the same thing. Inflation is going to go down. That's good news. The problem is it's going to bounce right back up. But why is that? Well, billionaire Michael Burry, you may remember him or know him because he was pretty much portrayed in the movie called The Big Short. But he made his money by shorting the housing market back in 2006. Now, why do I bring him up? I bring him up because he has been right in a lot of these things. A lot of his predictions over the past 2 years have been correct. So, this is what I want to tell you. We are currently experiencing a fight between the Federal Reserve and inflation. The Federal Reserve is losing as of right now, but they are gaining some ground. So here's what the Federal Reserve is doing. The Federal Reserve keeps on raising interest rates to bring down inflation. That's good news. The bad news is by continuing to raise rates, this is going to cause businesses to stop investing back into their business. Consumers are going to stop spending money at retail stores. We've already seen a slow in home buying, and this is going to continue. Right now, we do have inflation at 7.1% to start off 2023. The expectation is we're going to dip into that 5% range. We will dip into there within the next 6 months. Here's the problem. That's where all the problems actually begin. That's not where the problems are ending. That's the beginning of the problem. Here's why. According to legendary investor Michael Burry, he says, and let's read this together. He says, and this was on January 1st, 2023, he says, inflation peaked. Okay? Inflation peaked, but it is not the last peak of this cycle. We are likely to see CPI lower, possibly negative in the second half of 2023, and the U.S. recession by any definition, and the U.S. in a recession by any definition. The Fed will cut, government will stimulate, and we will have another inflation spike. It's not hard. That's what he said. Now, let's go and kind of look into what he was saying. What does he mean by this? Well, the Federal Reserve is going to do one thing. They're going to continue to raise rates to bring down inflation, right? To slow down spending, to increase unemployment. They're going to do all those things, right? Now, what this is going to do is this is going to push the U.S. economy into a recession. And I know you're probably thinking, well, we're already in a recession. It's true, but the Biden administration changed the definition of a recession. But like Michael Burry says right here, it will push the U.S. in a recession by any definition. So he is saying it doesn't matter what the Biden administration is going to say is the definition of a recession. We will be in a recession in 2023. Okay. Now, once this happens and the United States is in a recession, the Federal Reserve's next task is to figure out a way to get out of the recession, right? They push us into recession. It will most likely be a Fed-induced recession. But once they do that, their job is to get us out of recession, to get consumers spending money, get businesses reinvesting, right? All those things. The best way for them to do that is to cut interest rates. So once they cut rates and we start to stimulate the economy again, guess what happens? The American people start spending. Businesses are now making more money. They see consumers are coming back. So what do? They reinvest back into their business. And how do they do it? Well, they take out loans. That's how you make money. So by taking out loans, by consumers coming back, by the U.S. consumers spending a lot more money, guess what? It leads to higher prices, more spending. But at the same time, it leads to inflation. That's where we're going to see that kind of dip and then peak. So a lot of people are going to say, well, that's never going to happen. It doesn't work like that. That's exactly how inflation works. Okay? It's a cycle. And if you can predict it, you're great. You're smart. Well, smart people predict this all the time. Now, I was actually talking to a friend of mine just today, and he had a great kind of analogy because he was saying, and he's the one that told me about this tweet from Michael Burry. For some reason, I didn't see it, but he said, he's right. It's going to happen. It already happened with lumber. And I was thinking, did it happen with lumber? Well, let's look at the chart from lumber because it has happened with lumber. Here's what's happening. Now here is the lumber chart. I want to show you this for one main reason. This is showing that spike. Okay, look at this. Now this is only showing the previous close. So currently it is January 4th, but it's only showing for January 3rd because that's the previous close. Now here's what I can tell you. The peak, okay, was at 5/3/21. We're at pretty much $1,500, right? Now this is just what this is showing. But again, whether the numbers are 100% accurate, doesn't matter. But what is accurate is the trend here. Here's what we saw. So, so probably somewhere right over here is where the pandemic first started. We saw that sell-off, right? It went down. That's what we saw. Now, why is that important? We saw the sell-off, and then we see this run-up, okay? We see this run-up right here. Here's what happened. People were spending money. People just kept spending and spending and spending. We saw massive amounts of inflation, right? And this is 5/3/2021. Now, here's what happened. There comes a point where people just are like, you know what? I don't have the money. I can't spend any money. I'm not going to buy any building material. I just can't afford it, okay? So what happens at that point is people decide, okay, I can't spend any money. So what do? Well, prices begin to fall because businesses have to sell their products. So what do? They compete for the lowest price. I'm going to give you the best price on lumber. No, I am. And eventually what happens is the prices just keep falling, okay? So there's that race to the bottom. Then when consumers start buying, it's going to hit a floor. Once it hits that floor and consumers start coming back, builders are like, you know what? We got to get that. We got to get that built. We've been waiting too long. Need to get that built. Well, here we go. We see that run up. We always saw that happen, right? But then, being that this is lumber and people can only do so many reservations, builders can only build so many houses, guess what? They hit that peak. It's like, can't do anymore. Now, we're seeing this drop, and this is what's happening, okay? The same thing is going to happen with inflation in general, right? We've seen this with a little bit with the automotive industry, but we're going to see this with inflation in general. It's going to go up, which it already has. It's at 9.1%. Now it's dropping. The next thing it's going to do, it's going to keep tumbling down. Eventually, people are going to be like, oh, I've been really wanting that car. I'm going to go buy it, right? Because inflation's coming down. I really want that car. Rates are going to drop. And as they do, people are like, yeah, got to go spend. Or then they're like, you know what? I'm going to go get a new credit card. You get a great rate on it, maybe 0%, who knows. You get a great rate on your card, and you go and put a vacation on it. So it's like, I'm going to go and travel. I can afford it now. I'm going to go and travel. Or I can afford that renovation on my house because rates are dropping. I'm going to go and do that renovation. Or, oh, rates are dropping. I can actually afford that house. Guess what? I'm going to go buy the new house. That's what we're going to see. The expectation is it's probably going to happen in the end of 2023 or potentially 2024. But here's the crazy part. All these different things are pretty much layering on top of each other. So it's very difficult to predict when inflation is going to bottom out, when we're going to see it shoot back up and peak again, and then eventually it will come back down. That's the expectation. Now, why do I bring this up? I bring it up for one main reason. We are going to see this. We know it's coming. We've already seen the signs of it. It's just a matter of when. Now, currently, the American people have a personal savings rate of about 2.3%. This is the lowest it has been since, I believe, 2005. Now, last year we had a savings rate of 7.3%. In 2020, we had a savings rate of 33.8%. It just keeps falling. The expectation is because of inflation, we are going to see that 2.3% drop even more. In 2005, I believe it was at 2.1%. If we go into that 1% range, this is going to be troubling because the American people are going to have absolutely no savings. So we're going to see some changes. My only fear is that millions and millions of Americans will not be ready for when these changes happen. So here's my recommendation to you. First off, Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an update. I will fill you in on what's going on with the US economy and so much more. The next thing is to make sure you're saving money, pay off debt, and do one thing that I say all the time is to find another income source. If you can do those 3 things, you should be set. So, thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.